is not legal or psychological advice. Listening does not create a professional relationship with SplitUp or any guests. Launi and Robert are only licensed in the state of Arizona. For legal or mental health concerns, please consult a licensed professional in your state. Guest identities may be changed for privacy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our first SplitUp podcast. I'm Launi.
And I'm Robert. We're really glad to have you join us.
So to start things off, we wanted to give you a little bit of a background about who we are and why we're here and what SplitUp is. So I've been a family law attorney for a little over 24 years. And as a family law attorney, and by the way, having gone through my own divorce, I know how overwhelming the process can be, especially if you don't have an attorney to guide you. So we created SplitUp to make sure you had tools, if you don't have an attorney, to help guide you and navigate you through each step with confidence.
And I'm Robert DiCarlo. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I've spent years working with both mental health and family court clients, helping people manage the emotional side of these really tough experiences. And we certainly recognize that divorce is not just a legal battle, it's a deeply emotional experience. So that's why Launi and I teamed up to create SplitUp. We really want to provide support that covers both the legal procedures and some of the emotional hurdles you might expect.
All right, so what exactly is SplitUp and why did we create it? And that's kind of what we're diving into today. We'll be going through some key questions to give you a clear picture of what SplitUp does and how it can help.
Launi, let's just start with this. What is SplitUp and who is it for?
Great question. And we're going to have a bunch of these questions back and forth between me and Robert, but it's an app. It's an app designed to help people navigate the family court system, both legally and emotionally. It's for anyone going through a divorce, a separation, a paternity case, even modifications. And we're going to help you through both legally and emotionally. So it's really to help everyone get through that. With just some help and some guidance. So with about 85% of people in family court are unrepresented. We decided to create SplitUp to provide clear step-by-step guidance for those who need it most.
That's a pretty significant number, 85% without legal representation. Launi, why do you think so many people end up navigating family court without an attorney?
So I think it's because we're not cheap. It's an expensive process. You can't even, just one, say, consultation with an attorney is going to cost, between say $300 and $500. That's just for the consultation. So imagine 40 hours, or 80 hours or 100 hours working on a case, especially a high conflict case. It adds up really fast, but that doesn't mean that everyone should go through the process feeling disadvantaged or lost in the process of it. So SplitUp gives them a way to understand the system and knowing what to expect and how to prepare effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, the psychological side is just as important. Divorce and family court issues often bring up these really intense emotions. And it's not just about filling out forms or showing up in court. It's really about how we manage stress, how we manage conflict, and all the emotions that come with such a big life change.
Yeah, that's where your expertise is so invaluable, Robert. Can you talk a little bit about how SplitUp addresses the emotional and psychological challenges that people face in a divorce or custody battle or paternity, separation, whatever?
Yeah, sure, Launi. So SplitUp doesn't just tell you what documents you need. It also helps you manage these emotional aspects of divorce and family court. So when you're going through a process like this, we're able to provide through SplitUp strategies for dealing with stress, how to communicate effectively during really high conflict situations, and even tips for co-parenting during and after the process. So it's really about supporting you as a whole person and not just as a case number.
And I really think that holistic approach is key. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. So SplitUp covers two main areas, the legal steps and the emotional journey. And having gone through a divorce myself, the emotional journey was equally or more tough, I think, than the legal journey. Of course, I'm a divorce attorney, so I at least knew what to expect. And I think that's what's going to help the people get through is that we will teach them what to expect, and then you're going to help them kind of get through the emotional part. So we just want to make sure that anyone using the app can understand what's coming next in the process and how to emotionally ready themselves for it.
Exactly. And each step is laid out in a way that's really simple and structured. We already know that family court can feel like this huge maze. So we've organized SplitUp to provide you with a roadmap. It guides the users on things like, preparing for your hearings, handling depositions, really understanding the ins and outs of custody evaluations. There's also going to be support on the psychological side of things. So how do you deal with the stress? How do you cope with uncertainty, for example? And really staying grounded throughout the process as you navigate family court and some really big life changes.
And that's why we created it, right? I think people often feel overwhelmed or intimidated when they don't know what's coming next, or they feel like they're just waiting to see what's going to happen. With SplitUp, we're aiming to sort of demystify that whole system. And again, every system's different, every state is different, every jurisdiction is different. So we're just going to walk people through kind of what to expect, which way it goes, and then help them get through each one of their steps. So we'll give people some control and understanding, and ultimately a way to approach the whole process with confidence.
That's great. So I have a question for you. If someone is starting up from square one in a family court case, this is their first introduction, what can they expect to find in SplitUp as they begin?
So we're going to have a couple of levels, right? But first, we're going to have a map of what it looks like to go through it. And they can look through that little map to see, what steps to take, what steps go next. And then you'll see that it's organized in around each major area of the family court case. So whether at the beginning stages, of filing, or even before filing. Really, we're going to discuss what happens before filing. We're going to discuss what happens, at filing and how to file, and then walk them through, either each case, whether again it's a new case or a modification. We're going to walk them through, and there'll be guidance at every stage, and they'll get to use tools for understanding how to build the case, and insights on what to expect, and practical checklists to help stay organized. But not only that, there's going to be the sister part, right, that you're doing, which I think is so important, because it's not just, what we're feeling, what we're doing in the legal system, it's what we're feeling, and kind of getting all of that together.
Yeah, exactly. And that sounds incredibly empowering, having the legal tools and knowledge. But on the emotional side, we've also built in support for things like, managing your anxiety before those big milestones in your case, like hearings, or maybe even dealing with like the aftermath of challenging conversations. And as I mentioned before, ways to approach co-parenting. So it's not just about getting you through the process, but also staying mentally and emotionally strong through it all.
Yeah, and Robert, thank you for that, because you and I did talk about when we were creating this, initially it was just going to be getting through the divorce case, right? It was going to be, hey, before I file, what do I need to do? How do I need to plan legally? And what should I do to plan psychologically? And what do I need to tell my kids? And initially that was going to be our first way of doing it. And then after talking, we decided it needs to go further, right? It needs to go to the co-parenting, because sometimes that's the hardest part. It's one thing to get through a divorce. It's a whole another issue to co-parent with somebody who you might not have been able to co-parent with when you lived together and when you were married and when you got along decently. So that's a really exciting part, I think, that we decided to expand on. And I just really wanted people to know they're not alone. And we're going to give them a clear path. SplitUp was created to make sure that that no one has to go through the feelings completely lost, or feeling unsupported. So we're here to help kind of navigate the twists and turns of the family court step by step, so they feel prepared again and empowered, which, knowledge is power.
Yeah, and that's such a needed approach. And I'm so excited to be able to be part of this process to help people with that. So for anyone listening who might feel a little overwhelmed or even scared to begin such a journey, what's one thing, Launi, that you'd like them to know about SplitUp?
Well, again, like I just said, knowledge is power. And I think, us giving them the step-by-step ways to get through each section, I think is going to be really helpful. But it will also help them psychologically too, right? Even just knowing what to expect next will take away some of that anxiety. And by the way, Robert, you've got some great videos in there. And that's one thing that we didn't really talk about when I was talking about what SplitUp is. It's going to be a bunch of videos. So you're not going to have to read through a book. You're not going to have to, go through pinpoints of the laws, though we're going to give it to you in writing also. We've created videos, just little, 1 minute, 5 minute, 8 minute videos to kind of walk you through everything. And we've also, we'll have some handouts also. And then Robert, once I do something in the legal side, Robert, you're doing it kind of the same thing on the emotional side, which I love. So he's kind of mirroring what I'm doing and then saying, what are you going to feel when you go through this part? And I think we're both been through it. We get it. Divorce sucks. But I think this SplitUp is kind of going to be just a really great tool to help them navigate through.
Yeah, and just to explain that further, when you're in this app and you're looking for resources, and perhaps you're driven initially by maybe the need to have some sort of legal knowledge to know what to do next, the idea is you'll be able to pair that with more of the psychological / emotional advice. So you can review a video again on stress management, or maybe some emotions that you might not have anticipated or expected might come up. I'm going to be talking about those things so that you can be more prepared and feel more grounded when you navigate those more stressful aspects of the divorce process. So all in all, I think this is going to be a fantastic resource. Launi, I'm so excited to be working on this project with you.
Okay, so I'm going to go off. We kind of came up with what we were going to talk about, and I'm going to take you out of that for a second, Robert. And I know it's a surprise, but I just kind of want to give an example of one thing. I've written a couple of books. I wrote one on controlling your divorce. Again, I just think it's so important that people have an understanding of what they're going through, because I think that it helps ease the anxiety. But one of the things I do is like, let's prepare before you go through a divorce. And I'm going to talk about that legally. I'm not the psychologist. I don't know how everyone feels. I know how I felt. And I think Robert probably knows generally what that feeling is just through his education and experience, and working with families, for many, many years. But so preparing for divorce, and we're going to do a different podcast on this later, but I just want to kind of give a hint of this. I'm going to talk about, okay, what do you need to prepare for a divorce? You're going to get a new, safe, secure email that you can download things into in case, somehow things get deleted or your significant other deletes things. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about not really talking to your kids too much about it, but maybe doing it in a way that hopefully Robert's going to expand on, which he is. And so I'm going to talk about the legal aspects of talking to your kids about it, what to say and what not to say. And then Robert's going to talk to you about the psychological aspects, right? Robert, you want to talk about that for a second? And I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but I just felt like
No, I'm happy to talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up, Launi. So, divorce, for better or worse, is a fairly common experience, affecting over half of married relationships. There's certainly going to be some universally experienced emotions and feelings that come up, but it's such a wide range of emotional reactions to what would otherwise be sort of unpredictable responses. And so you don't know how, for example, you're going to feel when you have to file for temporary orders, or perhaps there's a history of domestic violence in your case and you need to file for an order of protection or a protective order. Or even relatively straightforward things like how kids respond in certain situations or questions they may ask. These are all going to be points at which you are going to experience some sort of emotional response, and that emotional response may drive behaviors. And behaviors in this context could either be adaptive, meaning they help you in some way accomplish a goal, or maladaptive, in examples where they run contrary to your goal and what you're trying to accomplish. And you're not always going to know what you're going to experience until you do. And I'd love to help provide resources on what are the range of experiences that people have based on my experience working with dozens and dozens of families going through this every single year. I'll probably spend a lot of time focusing on reactions of kids, because at the heart of this, we're working to help create what's in the best interest of our children, and that's a really important concept. And sometimes our behaviors don't always match our intentions. So my hope is that I can provide some expertise and understanding in how we discuss these issues with children and how we as parents respond to them.
So, it's interesting that you talked about the best interest of the children, because psychologically, that's what you talk about. But that's what I'm going to talk about legally too. That's what the courts look at. The courts are really interested in the best interest of the kids. And although they care about the parents, maybe that much, they really care about the best interest of the kids and what you do. So I've got a question for you. I am burying my head in the ground like an ostrich. Is that a maladaptive way?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Certainly, that is one possible behavior that you could engage in: avoidance, right? And avoidance has benefits and drawbacks. One of the benefits, for example, could be you don't have to address or confront intense emotions, and you get to sort of put it in a box for a little while. The consequence, or the maladaptive component with that, could be that you may miss important deadlines or milestones that could harm your legal case. And I don't speak so much about the legal end of things. I'm not an attorney like you, Launi, but on my end, as far as the psychological impact, those missed milestones can lead to negative outcomes for you or your children. Those missed opportunities, for example, could lead to poorer financial outcomes for you and your children, which is a valuable resource. You could miss opportunities for engaging in therapeutic interventions with your children that may help them. So, we don't want to overly judge any particular behavior, because they could be protective, but at the same time, they could lead to consequences that you didn't expect or want.
Okay, great. And see, that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get in the videos. That's why I wanted to kind of put you on the spot, because you're so great at that, even on the fly. And so Robert's making videos on that kind of thing. And then I'm going to be making videos on, the legal aspects and how to serve someone and why they need to be served the appropriate way. And I'm going to give tips on parenting from the legal perspective, like what judges want to look at, what's going to help you in your case. And I'm hoping that I don't think I'm going to conflict with what Robert says about it, because really the judges are looking for things that, again, are best interest. And so the things I'm going to be talking to you about are best interest, and then more of how to approach that in court and less of how to approach that in life, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Robert?
Yeah, and I'd like to say a little bit about that too. The concept of best interest of the child is a legal construct, and so when you're speaking at it from a legal or an attorney perspective, I may be viewing that different as a psychologist. And differences in how Launi and I approach a particular problem may just be reflective of our different vantage points. So sometimes what is best for our children may not be what's best from a legal strategy standpoint. And when those discrepancies seem obvious, we'll try to point them out and engage in discussion around them, because they are important distinctions. You can make a decision that is definitely good for your child, but it may not further your agenda from a legal strategic standpoint. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I want to offer up a couple of other things that we're doing. First of all, if you have any questions or we're not addressing something that you think is important, please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information is on the website and right below on the for the podcast and the YouTube. So if you have, if we're not touching something that you think is really important, please tell us. We want to address everything, and we can add it, we can upload it. But what we're also going to be doing is live sessions. And so when you sign up for the app, you're going to have access not just to to us talking, but if you're a premium member, You're going to be able to ask questions during there, and we're going to kind of try and answer them. Now, we can't give specific legal advice, but we can kind of give some ideas of what to do and how to move forward. And then Robert can give advice on the psychological aspect. So basically, we're going to pick a subject, and if you have a subject that you think you'd like to hear, let us know. But we're going to pick a subject, and I'm going to approach it from the legal perspective, and Robert's going to approach it from the psychological perspective, which I'm hopeful that in our minds it sounds great. So I think it's going to be a really great thing. So make sure that you do that. If you just choose the free version of our app, you'll be able to watch, but you won't be able to participate. So kind of keep that in mind. And we're also going to have a community so that you guys can go back and forth. We'll have it on Facebook, and we'll also have it on our app. So that's available. Robert, am I missing anything?
No, just to maybe emphasize, I'm really excited about the live component. I think there's opportunities for a lot of community engagement and discussion. I'm certainly happy to answer questions from the psychologist end of things, keeping in mind that I'm not giving psychological advice to clients per se, but more in general. And similarly for Launi, I'm sure you're not giving legal advice specifically to individuals. But there's so many, like I said, opportunities for interesting discussion and dialogue around really big issues facing litigants and families engaged in family court, and even what's happening in terms of legislation and different law changes and how that might impact family court involvement.
Yeah, and so I think that kind of gives you a basic idea of everything that we're trying to do. We both have this goal of helping the community and helping people succeed in this really difficult time. And we can't touch every single person, and we can't help every single person. There's only so many hours in the day. But I know Robert has a passion for helping people, and I have a passion for helping people. And so we're confident that this project, this SplitUp, is the best way that we could kind of do that together and give the largest amount of information to the largest amount of people. Would you agree?
Yeah, well said. And I think that's a really great note to end on for today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We're really looking forward to diving deeper into future episodes. We'll be covering everything from preparing to court to managing stress. Stick with us. We're here to help you make it through this process one step at a time.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Robert.
Thanks, Launi.